Part 3. Logic. So much for reason. Do I contradict myself? Very well, then I contradict myself. I am large. I contain multitudes. Walt Whitman. Logic is often viewed as scary. At heart, though, it is simply concerned with good reasoning and avoiding contradictions, resisting the assertion, for example, that something is both true and false. If Socrates is a man and all men are mortal, then logically it follows that Socrates is mortal. That is a valid argument. If the premises are true, we should accept the conclusion. To conclude, instead, that Socrates is immortal would be to contradict those premises. Certain little puzzles also rely on simple logic. 3 logicians walk into a bar. Do all of you want a drink? Asks the barmaid. I don't know, replies the first logician. I don't know, replies the second. The third simply says, yes. The third rightly reasons that logician 1 and logician 2 must want a drink, but do not know if he wants a drink. Hence neither 1 nor 2 knows if all 3 want a drink, whereas he now knows the truth about all 3, given he knows that he is in need of the refreshment. The simple points above are fine until we ask whether all statements are either true or false, until we wonder whether contradictions can always be avoided when thinking about what we know and intend, until we are reasoning about what others may be reasoning about our reasoning. Look out for the game of chicken. This part 3 includes some famous paradoxes, perplexities that appear to enmesh us in contradictions, the liar, Russell's paradox, and the mysteries of Hilbert's hotel. The paradoxes continue to fascinate and worry philosophers, with ever greater delvings. The following tale is therefore worth bearing in mind. It was related by an excellently named John Wisdom, who was much influenced by Wittgenstein. When an isolated community was introduced to the telephone, its expression for what the telephone delivered, translated into English, meant messages on poles. Later, when the wireless became available, the expression for what the wireless delivered meant messages on poles without the poles. What may appear contradictory, once explained, need not be contradictory. We set off, though, with some fun, of a princess and her suitors. Paradoxically, that fun relates to the serious business of nuclear deterrence. It is a splendid problem, if a problem can be splendid, but let me, here, own up to my favorite, the card-sharp camel with her enigmatic smile, while dealing the playing cards. Now, how can we sort out the reasoning there? 22. On thinking too much or how not to win a princess's hand. Cast ourselves into a kingdom ruled by the king and queen, a kingdom with jesters, princes and princesses, with dragons, dreams and damsels in distress. In our kingdom, there is a beautiful princess, the king and queen's daughter, yet there is stalemate. Which young man should gain the princess's hand? The king wants his daughter to marry Prince Clever, who is indeed clever, though neither exactly handsome nor strong nor possessing a prince's charm. The queen backs a rival, Prince Not So Clever, who is assuredly not so clever, yet is handsome, manly and charming. Both young men are enchanted by the princess. And the princess's love concerning the young men. Well, she wisely lets it be known she could love either. She does not want to make enemies of her father or mother. Such is love in those days, and such is parental authority. We must set the suitors a task, declares the queen, to see who displays the greatest devotion to our daughter. What a good idea, agrees the king. Let it be a mathematical puzzle and one that. Of course not, insists the queen, knowing Prince Not So Clever would fail any such test. They must slay a dragon. The first suitor to return with a dragon suitably slain shall have our daughter's hand. Now, that is not as impossible a task as it may sound. This is a kingdom with convenient dragons ready to be slain. Our princes, though, lack eagerness toward the proposal. After all, dragon slaying is hard work and can be quite a heated affair, but, if it has to be done, it would be worth the effort for the princess's hand. The king is very unhappy at the proposal. His preferred candidate would be highly unlikely to win. The king and queen argue until the princess pipes up. Let it be that one of the men needs only to intend to slay a dragon, while the other must actually slay a dragon. At this, Prince Clever quickly bags the intention only option, thinking that would obviously be so much easier than all the messy effort of slaying. Prince Not So Clever sighs, accepting that his slow-wittedness means that he will have to do the slaying. This is pointless and silly, thunders the Queen, then muttering, Prince Not So Clever is bound to lose, intending, which is all Prince Clever has to do, is so much easier than actually doing. Yet the princess kicks her, politely of course, silencing her, such is daughterly authority in those days. Answer. It is decided that the winner of the princess's hand will be the one who completes his task first, be it the intending only, sincerely of course, or the actual slaying, starting at sunrise tomorrow. Before readers ask, the king and queen have a court-mind reader who can easily read minds for sincere intentions. If this worries readers, we pop into the kingdom future brain scanners that readily detect psychological states such as intentions. Now, the question is, who is more likely to win the princess's hand? The puzzle centers on rationality and affects our everyday lives. In our question, we have added the caveat of more likely, as protection from readers who rightly note that we have said nothing about how strong the local dragons are, exactly how clever the suitors are, whether they remember the task next morning, and so on. Assuming all is straightforward, other than the tale's oddness, the answer, as readers may have guessed, is that Prince Not So Clever wins. He gets on with his task, slays the dragon, and marries the princess. What goes wrong for Prince Clever? Prince Clever was, of course, eager to accept the condition whereby merely intending was sufficient to win the princess's hand. As the queen thought, merely intending to do something seems so much easier than actually doing. Indeed, we may well sincerely intend to perform feats, yet fail. Prince Clever mused upon this point. I need only to intend to slay a dragon, he reflected. The actual slaying is hard work, so it would be silly to do any slaying. Once, at sunrise, I have already intended to slay. Ah. But that means that I would not be sincerely intending to slay after all, if I know that I won't then bother to slay. Prince Clever thought more. Ah well, I'd better slay the dragon after all, he reflected miserably, but then hesitated. Hold on, that would be crazy, for I don't need to do that, once I have had my sincere sunrise intention to slay. Yet as I am aware of that, once again I should have failed to have formed the required sincere intention. Okay, I had better go and slay, but hold on. And Sir Prince Clever's reasoning looped round and round, and as the sun rose he still found himself unable to form a sincere intention. Whenever he said, I intend, trying to mean it, his reason reminded him that he would not need to do what he intended, and he would have good reason not to do it, when the time came. Of course, Prince Not So Clever lacked all such quandaries. He went out and slew the dragon. Mind you, it was a little dragon. And so it was that Prince Not So Clever married the princess. The princess pretended surprise, while within she smiled wisely. Such was princess's wisdom in those days. Had the mere intention requirement also been given to Prince Not So Clever, he might still have won. Being not so clever, he might not have become enmeshed in the clever reasoning of Prince Clever. The puzzle arises because, at times, it is rational to commit ourselves to doing something that, later on, it will be irrational to do. When we reflect on this, we see how rationally we should lose the motivation to do the irrational, once that, later on, comes, thus undermining our commitment now to performing the task in question. Had Prince Clever been cleverer, maybe he could have persuaded himself that the requirement was that he really did have to slay the dragon rather than merely intend to slay. He would have been better off having that false belief. Or perhaps he could have committed himself to behaving irrationally in the future. A particular instance of commitment to irrationality exists when nations hold nuclear weapons with the professed policy of mutually assured destruction, MAD. If you strike first, we shall strike back, destroying the human race. Now, We may need the enemy to believe that is our intention, yet we, and they, may doubt the rationality of our keeping to that intention. Hence, can we truly intend such mass destruction? Perhaps we need to persuade the enemy that we are sufficiently irrational to carry out the intention, yet rational enough in other respects. Chicken. Chapter 24 explores related problems. The general puzzle here concerns binding ourselves over the future. Prince Clever needed to bind himself to carrying out his intention, blocking his ears from Reason's nagging little voice, reminding him that he would not need to do the slaying, if only he could intend to slay. In more everyday scenarios, things are a little different. Reason may tell us that we should arrange circumstances to prevent ourselves from yielding to future temptations, yet paradoxically we may know that, when faced with those temptations, we shall see things differently and fully favor succumbing. There is the ancient Greek tale according to which Odysseus knew that, unrestrained, he would yield to the sirens when he heard their melodious and beguiling song. Hence, he told his sailors to bind him to the mast and stop their ears with beeswax, ensuring that they would hear neither the sirens nor his orders to be released, when tempted by the song. Thus it was that, paradoxically, Odysseus intentionally prevented himself from doing what he would later want to do. These days we rarely encounter sirens seeking to sing us to the grave. We may, though, somewhat more prosaically, be aware that, as the evening draws on, we are likely to eat too many chocolates or drink too much wine, manifesting weakness of will, as examined in Part 6 with cream bun temptations, so we deliberately avoid buying these goods of delight on the way home. Yet we know that we shall soon be regretting that earlier decision. Did our past selves, so to speak, have a right to bind us to this sober, chocolate-less evening? And as we puzzle that question, we may more urgently puzzle whether the local supermarket is still open or whether, hold on, isn't there some whiskey tucked away upstairs?